One of the things I enjoy most about YouTube is discovering creators who quietly challenge the way we think about life. Today's creator is one of my absolute favorites. Living Big in a Tiny House, presented by Bryce Langston. At first glance, you might think this is simply a channel about tiny houses, but I believe it's about something much bigger than that. Hi, I'm Becky Savick. Today's channel review is rather unique as it explores three guests to a channel rather than being about one person and their journey. Bryce doesn't just show us beautiful homes, he introduces us to remarkable people, people who have questioned the idea that there's only one way to live and have found the courage to create a life that suits them instead. Over the years, he has travelled the world, meeting hundreds of people, each with their own unique story, their own challenges, and their own interpretation of what living big really means. Today, I've chosen three very different episodes. Each one explores the idea of tiny house living in a completely different way. You may watch these stories and think, that's exactly how I'd like to live. Or perhaps you'll simply discover one idea, one small change that you could borrow and make your own. That's what I love most about this channel. You don't have to copy someone else's life. You simply allow yourself to think differently. Let's meet our first guest.
Hi Jodie, it's so great to meet
Hi,
you.
how you going?
Very well, and oh my gosh, this is an oasis you've created here.
Yeah, we really have. It's our retreat from the crazy city.
Most people imagine a tiny house. They picture moving to the countryside. That's why I wanted to begin with Jodie's story. She hasn't escaped to the mountains or bought acres of land. Instead, she has transformed an ordinary suburban block, less than 20 minutes from the city, into something most people would never imagine existed. Let's take a look.
Coming down the street here, you would never know that all this is tucked away back here.
Yeah, there's kind of hints on the verge where you get the food is free cart that's there as well, and everything that's grown on the verge is free for anybody to take because we grow fruit and veggies out there as well. But yeah, you get a little bit of a hint, and then when you come in, everyone's reaction is really, wow, it's not your normal back garden in the city.
I love the surprise factor of this property. From the street, it looks like any other suburban home, but step through the gate and you're suddenly surrounded by fruit trees, vegetables, and an incredible food forest. Even more impressive is how much of it has been created using recycled materials and recycled plants. Jodie reminds us that creating something beautiful doesn't always require spending a fortune. Sometimes it simply requires looking at things differently.
If you remember the Wombles from the 1970s?
I totally remember the Wombles.
Yeah. So the Wombles were an English program of these little animals that scurried around the commons, and they took other people's waste and they repurposed it. So that's why this is called Womble Inn, because we use a lot of other people's waste. So like even the gazebo that you're standing under, somebody was getting rid of that for free. So we picked it up and put it into place here, and you'll see lots of things like even trees. This tree, the orange tree, was the first one that we actually put into place. My daughters have called it Orangina. It's an orange tree. And so when they're knocking down the blocks, people put on gum tree, free tree that you remove. So we've repurposed lots, all the limestone rock, we're on the Swan Coastal Plain, so we have a lot of limestone, so you can pick it up for free. So we've done all sorts of bits and pieces to try to be as frugal as possible.
Like so many people Bryce introduces us to, Jodie's story isn't really about building a tiny house. It's about solving a problem. Working full-time, studying sustainability and dreaming of travelling, she needed to find another way to live without being held back by a mortgage. Rather than seeing obstacles, she began seeing possibilities.
2 years before I turned 50, I wanted to go and do the Gibb River Road and set the four-wheel drive up and go. And I was starting to think, well, I don't want to pay for the mortgage while I'm gone. So I decided that I'd do sharing. I don't particularly want to live in a share house. So we were rebuilding an old tin shed. And as I was building it, I'd come and sit here at the end of the evening. Like, actually, this would be really nice to live in here. So we kind of like changed the plan right at the beginning and evolved it into a tiny house. And my plan was to come back from the trip, move back into the main house, but the tiny house has just worked so well. I wouldn't even consider moving back into the main house. You have
And financially, renting out the main house must really help with everything that you've got going on here.
Oh, definitely. I don't have to work in a corporate career anymore, so
Yeah.
I work part-time in Bunnings, which
Great.
I absolutely love.
Oh, wow,
So
great.
I do the checkout and I get to make people smile opposed to doing corporate strategies and things like that as well, which was quite stressful.
Absolutely perfect.
This is where Jodie's story really resonated with me. In my recent reflection number 5, I spoke about a wonderful lady who had chosen to share not only her land but her lifestyle with other people. This is the lady I was talking about. Instead of seeing her property as simply her home, Jodie created a place where other people could live, contribute, and can become part of a small community. To me, that's a beautiful example of reconsidering not just where we live, but how we live together. And it's another reminder that we don't always need more land. Sometimes we simply need to think differently about the land we already have.
And tell me about your dive into permaculture. How did all this come about?
That started at the same time as buying the place. Having a garden that had no design, and I loved gardening, and so I hooked into the Frio Permies and sort of went in there. And at the same time, the founding convener, Sparkle, she was stepping down from the Frio Permies, so I stepped up as the co-convener and immersed myself in the permaculture world. And it really resonated so much to my scientific brain. I'm a bit of an engineer kind of brain, so the systems thinking just worked so well, opposed to just having a garden. I see gardening is very 2D, permaculture is very 3D. So everything has to have a purpose and how it interacts with each other. Like for instance, taking it to not just my role here as the custodian of the property, but having HelpX to help with time issues, and the share house to help with the financial contributions and everything, and how we do that system thinking, like what do I plant, how does it benefit the bees, the chickens and the compost systems and all of that all go back into one to create a kind of a sustainable and holistic lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of this kind of urban permaculture application, one of the things that I think it does so brilliantly is establishing all of these wonderful little microclimates.
Yeah.
Like we have a roasting hot day out there today. It's summer in Perth, so it's hot.
Yeah.
But here under this canopy, it's lovely and cool.
Yeah, so definitely there is that urban heat island effect, and there's studies I think UWA had put out that it can be 6 to 10 degrees hotter by developing. And when you look at the property next door that they knocked down, and they've just put the brick paving all the way through, and there's no trees, no canopy. Whereas here we've got the canopy, and also that means when I do water, that 20 minutes I'm allowed to can then actually last for a couple of days.
Yeah. So your watering time's limited here, is it?
In Perth, yes, we do. We have, I think, 2 times a week that we're allowed to water for 20 minutes.
Are you? And how productive is this land? How much produce are you getting out of here?
Ooh, I've never measured. We get a lot, enough for our meals. You can go and pick whatever you wanted for dinner. The running joke is that we're pretty much prepared for the zombie apocalypse. So we've got that. And COVID was great. We had it perfect here.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to go to the shops. We had so many different spaces here, so everyone had their own individual, and you could actually get a meal from where you needed to. So, yeah, and we even grew some alternatives to toilet paper. So it was great.
Jodie's solution wasn't simply to build a tiny house. She completely reimagined how her entire property could work. The original house became a rental generating share house, a caravan welcomed another resident, and her tiny house became home. And together they created a community that supported each other and the lifestyle Jodie wants to live.
Your house is just so perfectly tucked into the garden because, as you said before, there's something about living in a tiny house that really can connect you so much more with nature. And in a big way, this becomes your living room, doesn't it?
Definitely. And there's a big difference to how we live here in summer opposed to how we live in winter. So in winter, there's no canopy at all. So on the sunny days, it's actually full sun in here. Because with permaculture, you have a lot of stuff, like you got your beekeeping supplies, we've got all our cheese making, wine making stuff. So that's very much kept in the scullery in the house. So I'm always going in between and depending on what we're doing as well. So yeah, quite always moving through the garden.
Yeah. So in a way, you've built a kind of community here, haven't you? Between you living in the tiny house, your tenants in the main house, and then your HelpX here as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's been a real interesting challenge of choosing the right people to actually come into as well, because this is more of a lifestyle choice, coming and live here. It's not just your normal share house.
I have to admit, Jodie's tiny house is probably one of the smallest homes I've seen on Bryce's channel. Personally, I think it would be a little too compact for me, but that's exactly why I enjoy watching living big in a tiny house. I don't expect every home to suit me perfectly. Instead, I collect ideas. Whether it's her budget-friendly building techniques, her living outdoor spaces, which really appeals to me, or the sense of connection she has created with nature, there's always something to learn. Let's step inside.
But that's another thing that I actually find living this way as well. You see much more. So we've got the native worms and the native bees. So everywhere I go, I've got insects and things like that as well. So, and I even have in the bathroom Merv the Perv.
Who is Merv the Perv?
Merv the Perv is a little lizard that every time I have a shower, he comes out and watches me have a shower. So it's great.
Well, especially because so much of this project is all about connecting with nature. It's all about returning to simplicity, going really back to basics and creating abundance for yourself here in this urban oasis. I love the way that it really gives you all of those tiny little payoffs and those little sort of stories and those little charming aspects of just the things that you discover when you actually pay attention to what nature's doing.
Yeah, and it's going slow. Yeah, it's enabled me to go slow.
I think Jodie leaves us with one of the most important messages in this entire review. Living differently doesn't always begin with building something new. Sometimes it begins by changing the way we see what we already have.
Living in the tiny house and the lifestyle that I actually have and what it's taught about me is I can do it. No matter what has come in front of me and big things that look huge, means I can actually do it. You just start from the beginning, you start with baby steps and not just push myself, but make sure that you've got the right support systems around you to do that. And I think that's really important. We're not meant to be solo people, and hooking into communities that feed you and don't necessarily take from you is really important. And I think I've made that work really well. So I'm proud of myself and so I've done it.
This next clip couldn't be more different from Jodie, where Jodie created a thriving suburban permacultural community. Nolene and Steve set out to design a home that would perfectly suit the next stage of their lives. It is a reminder that tiny living isn't about following someone else's blueprint. It's about creating a home that works for you. Let's meet them.
Today, we visit a house where space has been conceptualized perfectly, where the build has been executed brilliantly. This shed house in Australia is an absolute masterclass in design. Hi Nolene, it's so nice to meet
Bryce,
you.
nice to meet you finally.
G'day Steve, great to be here.
How are you, mate?
One of the things I admire most about Nolene and Steve is that they aren't trying to prove anything. They openly talk about their age and about creating a home that makes life easier, more enjoyable and more comfortable for their needs. Steve has done almost all of the building while Nolene has guided the design and interior ideas, and together they created something very special. Of course, like most great projects, they also discovered that a little help from friends goes a long way.
Very well. This is absolutely amazing. What a place you've created here.
Thank you.
Bit of a sanctuary for us, yeah.
It is.
It really is. The house itself is absolutely stunning, but this whole property, you've transformed this into a little urban oasis.
Yeah, we have. It's only taken about 2.5 years, or a tad over 2 years to do the lot, which is an achievement, I think, for our age.
Yeah.
You know, I'm nearly 70, and this is a self-build. Apart from a little bit of help from some friends, we've built it ourselves, so I think it's a major achievement.
It certainly is. And you've accomplished all of this in 2 years, which is extraordinary.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're nearly finished. We've only got a carport to go and a couple of other things.
I think we created too many projects along the way that took us off track of actually finishing the house. But yeah, we're really happy with the house and where it's at now. So we've been in here 18 months, so we've really settled in now. So.
Yeah. And
Unlike Jodie, who transformed an existing suburban property, Nolene and Steve made the decision to relocate. They wanted the freedom to build exactly what they imagined without compromise. Sometimes changing your lifestyle means changing your location. Other times it simply means changing your perspective. There isn't a right or wrong answer, only the one that's right for you.
And what was it that inspired this whole project? How did you come to be here?
So I think a lot of it came from this style of home is not conventional. So there's very limited blocks that you can actually build a home like this on. A lot of subdivisions now dictate the size of the house you can build, the minimum size. So, of course, a tiny house is never going to work in most of those areas. So then you start to look outside. We started looking around about 30 minutes out of the city. And obviously in these small Australian country towns, the land is still quite affordable. So it was a big move, you know, because I've been a city girl all my life, but I had the dream of building a shed house since, I don't know. Yeah. So I had a picture on an inspiration board and it's now come to life. And
one thing you'll probably notice throughout Bryce's channel is how often recycled materials become part of these homes. It's not simply about saving money, it's about seeing value where other people see waste. Steve's creativity shines throughout this build, and I have to admit I smiled at the story about his and hers shed. You'll have to watch carefully to hear about the special cladding he chose for his own retreat.
And there's so much to talk about when it comes to the house, but I cannot ignore your exceptional gardens and all of these wonderful outbuildings that you've created.
They were the projects that I came up with along the way.
Nolene comes up with projects and then I just make them. But you have to keep in mind, a lot of the things that have been built on here are recycled stuff. I've got a Kiwi cave, I call it, a man cave, and that's just about completely recycled. It costs very little to build. It's a beautiful construction, but it didn't cost much. And then there's a nursery that's the same, it's all recycled stuff, and a Prosecco bar.
Oh, nice.
The Prosecco bar is...
with just an indulgence.
Yeah, but I don't think you'll be allowed out there unless you take a Prosecco out, because I can get in there if I carry a bottle of Prosecco. Try that. Apart from that, women only.
Women only. I'll be relegated to the Kiwi shed instead.
That's the spot to be.
You notice something these two episodes have in common. Neither home is centred around the house itself. The gardens are just as important. Growing food, spending time outdoors and creating beautiful spaces to enjoy every day seem to become natural priorities once people begin reconsidering how they want to live. Nolene also put a tremendous amount of thought into designing a home that would continue to work for them as they grew older. Personally, I'm not sure I would call this a tiny house anymore. To me, it seems more like a beautifully designed small home, and perhaps that's another lesson Bryce quietly teaches us. We don't have to fit neatly into labels.
Those raised beds are so nicely done.
Yeah. Prior to here, Nolene was working on a solar farm and they're just parts boxes. They stack up on each other. So we've collected the boxes and what I've done is made them into wicker gardens. So 50% of them is geotextile and Aggie pipe, and they hold 60 litres each and they wick up. So even when it's hot in summertime, you put the 60 litres in, there's a pipe to fill them, and they will stay damp for 4 to 5 weeks, so they very rarely get filled up with water. And we grow a heck of a lot of stuff.
And I guess when I designed the facade of the house, it was important because we only had this north-facing section here that we made this into a bit of an area where we could capture the winter sun, and then we have the east rising in the morning there. So the house stays warm from the morning in winter right through to mid-afternoon, and we can open up the bifold window here, so that was why we ended up putting that in there. So that was the facade, and obviously the big raked gable deck here. And the rest of it just sort of flowed indoor, outdoor living, as we said, off to the side here in the outdoor living area we're going to create. And that's what we've come up with. So it works really well.
Yeah. And what size is the house?
So the house is actually 84 square metres. It is bigger than a tiny house, but for us at our age, getting up and down stairs in a tiny house was probably not an option.
Fair enough.
So we just made it wider and put that bedroom in, but very much driven by the tiny house concept.
Yeah.
If you were impressed by the outside, just wait until you see the interior. I'll let Bryce show you through. Watch the full episode to see all the detail and design.
Already, I am absolutely blown away by everything that you've created here, and I cannot wait to see what you've done on the inside. Can we have a look?
Absolutely.
Sure,
come on in.
Thank you very much.
I always enjoy watching couples like Nolene and Steve. There's such a quiet respect between them. Steve never misses an opportunity to acknowledge Nolene's ideas, and together they created something they can be both proud of. Their final thoughts are a gentle reminder that creating a new chapter in life doesn't depend on your age. Sometimes retirement or simply growing older becomes the perfect time to begin something completely new.
Home. You've been in here 18 months now, and this was such a labour of love for you. You've poured so much of yourselves into this space. What's it like now getting to live inside your own design?
We don't like being away from it now. Like it's really nice to live in. The longer you're here, the more you realise how absolutely practical it is. It's an absolute pleasure to live in. I tell people it's not just because we built it. It's when you're living here all the time and you've got no one to talk to about it, you know, this is amazing. Yeah. So we're pretty happy.
And I can tell that you're also both people who really love and enjoy a good project. So no doubt this is a place that's going to continue to expand and evolve as you get even more ideas.
Yeah.
I think we need to finish it soon so we can enjoy it a bit more. But we're nearly there. It has been... The actual house, strangely, took 12 months.
Right.
And we only did it on weekends.
You know, 80% of the house has just been built with us. And
yeah.
I get a lot of pleasure out of it and pride out of the fact that at this age, so for anybody out there who thinks they can't do it, you just do it. And like I say, I'll be 70 this year and I'm still building. But I think if you're not creating and you're not thinking,
And doing.
that's when life goes bad for you. You know, you need to be creating things, and this is just that. It's us just being creative and expressing that. And then people come and visit your expression and go, wow. And that makes you feel really good, you know. It really does. And you know you're on the right track.
Yeah.
It's
It's a very easy and calming house to live in, and I think that's a good thing for anybody, but especially at our age, we just want peace and quiet, and that's what this place gives us, yeah.
If I thought Bryce had shown me every possible interpretation of a tiny house living, then along came Raina. This house sits somewhere between Jodie's practical suburban oasis and Nolene and Steve's beautifully designed home, a tiny house built entirely inside a greenhouse. It sounds unusual at first, but keep an open mind, because by the end of the episode, you'll find yourself wondering, why isn't this more common?
If somebody told you that they wanted to build a tiny house inside a greenhouse, you might think that they were absolutely nuts. But the result is one of the most amazing homes I've ever seen.
One of the things I enjoy most about wandering through YouTube is discovering ideas I've never even imagined before. Surprisingly, this isn't the first greenhouse home I've come across, but Raina's interpretation is certainly one of the most impressive. What fascinates me most wasn't simply the finished result. It was hearing that he had carried this idea around for more than 20 years before finally bringing it to life. Sometimes our best ideas don't happen overnight. Sometimes they quietly wait until life presents the right opportunity.
Hi Raina, it's so great to meet you.
Hi Bryce, how are you?
I am very well, and I have to say, this is incredible. I have never seen anything quite like this before.
Yep, I quite like it.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
So what was it that inspired you to build a tiny house inside a greenhouse?
I've been working in the Netherlands in the early 80s, and that was the first time when I saw a guy living in a greenhouse. I've never met him, but people talked about him. It was this mystic figure, you know. And during my career, I worked in lots and lots of greenhouses. And I always found it a very special place, not just for the plants, also working inside, you know, being independent from the weather, the atmosphere. I always find it very attractive. And so over the years, I started to develop the idea one day to live in a glass house. And probably 20 years ago, I started my first drawings.
By now, you've probably noticed another theme running through all 3 episodes and the review on my channel so far: growing food, living closer to nature, designing homes that support life rather than simply shelter it. These aren't people escaping modern society. They're simply choosing to reconnect with something that perhaps many of us have slowly drifted away from. For quite some time now, I found myself reconsidering whether producing at least some of my own food should become more normal again. Watching creators like Raina reminds me that I'm certainly not the only person thinking this way.
What an amazing project. And of course you have a background in horticulture.
Yes, I've been a horticulturist for over 45 years now. I dabbled a little bit in other professions, but I came back,
Yeah. And one of the great things about the way that you've done all of this is, in a way, your whole garden has just become this giant extension of your house. And I mean, right now, today, it is absolutely pouring with rain outside, but we're enjoying perfect weather in your garden.
Yes, I'm a strong believer that gardens and houses should plant at the same time and really bring both functions together instead of just having a nice aesthetic extension outside.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing wrong with aesthetics, but there's much more with plants you can do, enhancing features, design of the house.
And how much land do you have here?
It's a very small block, just 4,200 square meters. And I was very fortunate to purchase this place and then being allowed to build this project.
Yeah. So you're growing food obviously inside the greenhouse, but you've also got some crops outside as well.
Yes, this is a one-man show. I've got no helpers. And this is basically the maximum one person can do. And it requires some very out-of-the-box cultivation techniques to run this place. And one other reason why I kind of extended the interior section is due to the bushfire risk here.
Right.
So if you can irrigate an area around your house, it's deemed as very safe. And if you run a market garden, that's one of the safest areas you can have.
Wow.
Because they are constantly irrigated.
Great.
Something else I really admire about Rainer's story is his definition of success. He isn't trying to build a bigger business or earn more money just for the sake of it. His goal is much simpler, to earn enough to support the life he wants to live. Growing produce for a local restaurant, enjoying his hobbies, contributing to his community, and living with fewer financial pressures. That's a different way of measuring success, and perhaps one worth thinking about.
Got about an acre of land here. Is that enough to produce enough vegetables for you to make a decent income out of?
Absolutely. I'm a really outdoor person. I like my fishing, I like my hunting, and people here are doing a bit of bartering as well. So money is not really important as it would be in the city. So with this all paid for, I can live on 20 grand a year.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
This next section is one of my favourites. Rather than accepting conventional building methods, Rainer researched alternatives from around the world. His greenhouse structure came from Europe before making its way to Tasmania. It's a wonderful reminder of how easily ideas can travel across the globe. People we've never met can inspire us to rethink our lives, and Bryce has a remarkable ability to bring these ideas to our screens.
When you started this whole home project, you bought this just as an empty paddock, and you've built all of this. Can you talk to me about how all of this construction was achieved?
Yeah, sometimes it's good not knowing what you're embarking on.
Yeah.
So I actually shopped around where I can get these Venlo glass houses. It's a standard Netherlands design, and it's been developed over 80 years. So I ended up going back to the Netherlands and having a 40-foot shipping container packed with the whole thing. And Tasmania, somehow, the shipping from Melbourne was the same as from Europe to Melbourne.
Wow.
Somehow in this Bass Strait, something magical happens. And I had a small crane for the setup then. So basically we bolted these frames together that you can see up there and then just tilted them up on the foundations. And from there, everything else was kind of patched on.
Yeah, great. What's the overall footprint of the greenhouse?
That's a bit over 300 square meters. So with transport, and that was before COVID, I paid around $75,000, including the shipping, which is an amazing value for a 300 square meter covered space.
Yeah. And then
One thing that really impressed me was the amount of thought that went into making this concept actually work. It's one thing to dream about living inside a greenhouse. It's another thing entirely to solve practical problems like insulation, condensation, and mold. Rainer carefully engineered his tiny house to overcome these challenges. And when you hear what he spends on electricity, well, I think you'll probably be just as surprised as I was.
So with this setup, walls, roof, floor highly insulated, double glazed, and the roof is ventilated as well. I avoid temperature peaks. My average electricity bill is around $50 for the 3-month period.
Wow.
Winter and summer, and this is for the whole show, including all the power needs for the glass house.
That's incredible.
I love that analogy. It's really like driving the house. You have to work with it. On a warm summer day, I'll shut the whole place down because overnight it has cooled down to 19 or 20 degrees and it will conserve that temperature basically over the whole day. And the whole cycle is reversed in winter because in winter in Tassie you get a lot of sunny days. It's still cool outside, but in here it can reach up to 25, even sometimes 30 degrees. So that's when I open up doors and windows in winter and let the warm air in.
By now, you've probably caught a glimpse inside the tiny house itself. The interior is simple, functional, built entirely around Raina's own needs rather than anyone else's expectations. I particularly enjoyed hearing the stories behind many of the pieces of furniture. They aren't simply objects. Each one has its own history. I'll leave Raina to finish telling his story.
You've created such a great environment in here. It kind of has this wonderful blend of the natural elements coming in from the timber, the sort of the hints of green and everything that you can see through the windows and peeking out into the greenhouse. But then it's also got this quite stark industrial element to it as well.
Yeah.
Desk that you've created here as well. All of the furniture in here, you've obviously made it yourself because it's all just so cool and creative.
Yes, that's very important for me, knowing that this particular piece only exists one time, is unique. And I'm always interested in a story. So with this sickle shape desk there, that really goes back to one tree.
You've got the wetsuit there as well, so you do a bit of spearfishing.
Yes, that has become one of my favorites. In the area here, you're spoiled for choice.
And I am so intrigued with how you have tackled the shower and basin in here. This is a really unique take on a bathroom.
Yeah, beside building things myself, I'm really hopeless when it comes to upcycling, recycling. And the base, that was on a scrap heap. And it's the typical thing, you look at something and you've got this spontaneous idea of what it could be. And that's a classic example, you know. It was the base of my shower.
You've got everything here. You've got your home, you've got your gardens, which is also your work. This is a space where there is just so much going on and it's so unique and interesting and everything is just so different. What's it actually like to live here?
I must admit it's pretty awesome. And I've heard a few people saying or telling me, gee, you have found your spot in life. And more often I feel like that, which is a pretty amazing achievement in these times.
I think so.
Yeah, that probably sums it up. That's what it is in a nutshell.
Yeah.
What you will find on Living Big in a Tiny House is that no two episodes ever feel the same. Bryce Langston has travelled the world introducing us to extraordinary people, but what stays with me isn't the size of their homes, it's their willingness to question the ordinary. Jodie reminds us that community can begin in an ordinary suburban backyard. Nolene and Steve showed us the thoughtful design can create a home perfectly suited to the next stage of life. And Raina challenged us to rethink what a home could be altogether. 3 completely different people, 3 completely different homes, yet all connected by one simple idea. They gave themselves permission to live differently. The world is an amazing place. We are incredibly fortunate to live in a time when we can learn from people on the other side of the world, discover new ideas, and quietly reconsider the lives we're creating for ourselves. We don't have to copy anyone. We don't have to build a tiny house. But perhaps we can take one idea, one habit, one way of looking at life and making it part of our journey. If Bryce's stories resonated with you, I've linked his channel and the videos featured here in the description box. This isn't my story to tell, only one to reflect on. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What have you been quietly reconsidering? Because maybe this isn't about finding answers straight away. Maybe it's simply about beginning. Until next time, this has been A Life Reconsidered.